Sitting out in the quiet waters of the Venetian lagoon, there's this small, forbidden island. It's a place so packed with tragedy that for centuries, people have just instinctively stayed away. This is the story of Poveglia, an island where, as many believe, the dead never really left. If you saw it from a distance, you might think it looks peaceful, just overgrown and silent. But that silence, it's deceiving. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. It feels occupied. The kind of quiet that feels like it's watching you. So where does a story like this even begin? Well, we have to go back to one of the darkest times in human history, the Black Death. As the plague just ripped through Europe, a desperate Venice needed somewhere to put the sick and the dying, a place to banish the fear itself. And they chose Poveglia. Just try to imagine being forced onto a boat, absolutely knowing you were never coming back. And it didn't even matter if you were actually sick or just had a cough. Men, women, children, they were all brought here and just abandoned. Poveglia wasn't a hospital. It was a place you went to disappear. The number of people who died there it's just staggering. As the bodies started piling up, burying them became impossible. The only solution they had was fire. It's estimated that over 100,000 people died on this tiny little piece of land. So many, in fact, that the soil itself is said to be mostly human ash. And here is where the story gets truly horrific. In the sheer panic to stop the disease from spreading, the living were often thrown into these massive burning pits right alongside the dead. People who were too weak, unable to fight back, their last moments were an agony that we can barely even comprehend. So you'd think after the plague finally faded, Poveglia would just be a quiet, forgotten place. But no. Local fishermen started avoiding the waters around it completely. They'd talk about hearing screams on calm nights, seeing shadows darting between the ruins. And sometimes their nets would pull up human bones. So years go by. The memory of the plague pits kind of fades into legend. And then the authorities make a fateful decision. They figure the island could be useful again. Not for sick bodies this time, though. For broken minds. They built a mental hospital right on top of it all.
But here's the thing. They weren't bringing disturbed patients to an empty place. They were bringing them to a place that was already soaked in suffering. And pretty soon, patients with totally different conditions all started reporting the exact same terrifying things, seeing the same shadow figures, hearing the very same whispers.
And at the center of all this was a doctor. Now, he was a man of science, at least at first. He tried to study the patient's shared delusions, looking for some kind of rational explanation. But then, the things they were describing, they started happening to him too. It started subtly, Faint whispers you couldn't quite make out, the constant feeling of being followed. He became obsessed. He was convinced the island's past wasn't just some historical echo. It was an active presence. And instead of getting out of there, he went deeper, conducting these twisted, unrecorded experiments on his patients, trying to somehow unlock the island's secrets. According to the few stories that survived, one night, the doctor just snapped. He was seen running, totally panicked, straight for the asylum's bell tower. Witnesses said he was shouting, screaming, just locked in this furious argument with something that no one else could see. And when he got to the top, he jumped. But here is the most chilling detail of that story. Witnesses said he didn't scream on the way down. And the people who found his body, they reported that the look on his face wasn't one of agony, but of relief. As if death was the only escape from whatever was tormenting him. The asylum was shut down not long after that. So the island was abandoned once again. But its reputation, that only grew. In the modern era, you've got thrill seekers, paranormal investigators, all drawn to Poveglia, trying to find out if the stories are true. I mean, officially, the island is completely off limits, but, well, some people still find a way over. And what's so unsettling is how consistent their stories are. We're talking about people from different times, no connection to each other, all reporting the same things. This immediate sense of dread, a silence so heavy it feels like it's suffocating you, equipment just failing for no reason, and the most common one, this unshakable feeling that you are not welcome and that you are being watched. There's this one story of a solo explorer who was recording his visit. All of a sudden, his whole demeanor just changes. On the audio, you can hear him ask, "Did you hear that?" right before the camera drops. And for just a split second before the video dies, something appears in the frame behind him, a shape that makes it clear he was not alone. They found him later, but he refused to ever say a word about what happened. And this is the point, isn't it? The consistency. One story is just a story. But when you have dozens of unconnected people reporting the same sounds, the same feelings, the same presence, that's a pattern. And that pattern becomes very, very hard to just dismiss as imagination. So this brings us to the final and, frankly, the most disturbing question about Poveglia. What is actually there? Why is it still so strictly forbidden? I mean, the official reason is that the buildings are falling apart, but the truth might be something else entirely. Okay, so one theory is that the island just has what they call residual energy, that all that extreme suffering left behind a kind of psychic imprint, a memory that just keeps replaying like an old recording.
But that doesn't really fit the facts, does it? The reports aren't random. People describe being followed, hearing voices that call out directly to them, being led down hallways that seem to change. That's not a passive echo. That's an interaction.
And this leads to a far more terrifying theory, that all of that immense, concentrated suffering on Poveglia didn't just stain the island, it coalesced. That over centuries, it evolved into something conscious, not just a collection of ghosts, but a single, aware entity born from pure pain. Just think about that for a second. That suffocating silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of something waiting, listening for your footsteps, totally aware that you're there. And that is maybe the most chilling thought of all. Poveglia isn't haunted by its past, it is its past. An island that watches and waits and remembers everything. It doesn't need people to visit to feel occupied, because the moment you get too close, it already knows you're there.